Hello to everybody out there in radio/podcast land. This is Matt from the Rub Wrestling Podcast. We're on episode number 18. We've been gone for a little bit. I hope you haven't missed us too much, but actually, I fucking really hope you do think that you missed us, because that means that we have a lot more followers and a lot more people watching our podcast, which is the key, right? We got an action-packed episode for you guys today. We're going to be talking about probably one of the best pay-per-views we've probably seen in the last 5 years in WrestleDream, which was a tribute to Antonio Inoki. We're going to kind of cover our thoughts about that, go over some of the main matches that were in there. But basically, just to kick us off, like we always say, if you can hit the follow or the subscribe button, you can basically find our pod anywhere that you can find us. You can find us on Google, you can find us on Apple, you can find us on YouTube. If you have any questions for us, rumors, or anything that you want us to bring up on the show, you can hit us up at therubwrestling@outlook.com. That is our basically our pod email address that you can hit us up at, and you can feel free to do that at any time. So with that, let's get to our illustrious panel. Chris, your shirt is yellow. You kind of look like Curious George. Was that a book that you read when you were a kid?
I did read Curious George, but I do, as you guys know, I worked for Cinefest, the local film festival, for 8 years, and then I moved away. And then when I came back, my boss brought me back in, so I work for them every year. So it's like a family. It's great. I don't know where I put the batteries in here. Nobody ever told me.
Just stay away from the man with the yellow hat, let me tell you. Now, Josh, we talked about a little bit of Toronto Blue Jays on the last podcast, but I just wanted to tell you, and if Chris doesn't know, he's going to find out right now. I threw $50 on the Jays at plus 1,700, which is a $900 payout. Are they going to win the World Series, or am I an idiot?
Can I jump in real quick?
Sure.
I don't think that's that bad. That's all I want to say until Josh. I'll let Josh do the rest.
No, I don't. I mean, for $50, it invests you in watching the Blue Jays. Hopefully, they win the first round, and then you get to continue to enjoy the playoffs. But I think that they have a chance if playoff baseball. Their starters are healthy and their batters are relatively healthy. They just need to start hitting the ball a little bit more. They had the best starters in the AL, and their relief is relatively good too. I think that they have a really good chance to go the distance as long as they keep their heads on.
It's funny when you kind of look at bets like that, boys, and you kind of sit there and you're looking at it and you're like, plus 1,700. Seems like they can do it. And just kind of go with that underdog.
When's the last time you saw Jordan Romano come out and then give way to Jordan Hicks, who just throws pure gas? I don't know. I say we have a chance. I think they quietly put together a pretty good team. We saw it in that extra innings game. They look pretty good.
Oh man, 100-mile-per-hour piss missiles going right over the place. Yeah. You can't F around with that at all. That guy's just got pure heat. He's my dad's favorite pitcher. My dad's been watching a lot of the Jays this year, and yeah. So it'll be interesting. We'll be talking about that in the intros of our podcast to come. And if you don't like baseball, go fuck yourself. But other than that, what are we here to talk about? We're here to talk about WrestleDream, and honestly, we're going to get into it in a second. We're going to talk about our initial thoughts of what we thought of the card, everything we saw. But again, a tribute to Antonio Inoki from Seattle, Washington, basically last night. It's just I'm just going to come out and say it. It has the wrestling world buzzing. And that's pretty much what we're going to talk about today. We're going to basically talk about our thoughts. We're going to give you the 5 matches that we thought were pretty good. There's one that we can't talk about because some people didn't watch it or whatever, but that's fine. We'll talk about that at a later date. We'll get him later. But with that being said, gentlemen, I already said it. It was one of the best pay-per-views, I think, that I've seen in the last 5 years. I don't think that there was a match probably below, I don't know if you're going to use star rating, but if you use grade rating, probably under a B at this point. The Statlander Hart match was great for the TBS Championship. Kingston and Shibata was fantastic. There were some really good matches, even in 0 Hour, Castagnoli and Josh Barnett. Nobody's seen Josh Barnett in forever. So it was interesting to see him. A little bit heavier, a little bit older, but can still wrestle it up. Chris, tell us what your thoughts were about going into WrestleDream. Did you think it was actually going to be as good as it was? Or do you just think that this pay-per-view just basically completely overperformed what you thought it was going to do?
Yeah, I think it punched above its weight class for sure. I think on paper what we saw wasn't exactly what we got. I think we got a lot better. Even like you guys are mentioning Barnett, like I guess the resident MMA guy who knows a little bit more about that than you guys do. But like seeing Barnett get in there and like it was good they put it on 0 hour. That wouldn't be a match that you want on the main card, like just because there is catch wrestling and shoot wrestling, right? The whole time. That was it was I didn't even know Barnett was on the card until I got to my friend's house yesterday. He said or not McPherson, but he said Barnett's wrestling, and I'm like, oh no way. Still not like he's not the best physique, but he looked a little gassed too. But it looks like it's not over between those two. So, I mean, for 0 hour cards, I thought it was a better 0 hour card than I've seen in a while.
Yeah, you know what? We'd have to agree with the 0 hour card. I mean, you know what? We really got to kind of see a few different things there. We got to see Nick Wayne basically out of Seattle really get a shot against Luchasaurus, and kind of Nick Wayne. We'll be hearing about him a little bit later on. But even get to be able to see the Mighty Don't Kneel. I get to see like Shane Hayes and those guys. They were in a pretty good trios match with the Acclaimed. Shane Taylor, Lee Moriarty, and against Kojima, Keith Lee, and even having Kojima on the card was still pretty cool. And then Athena and Billy Starks. And it was a true 0 hour, but it was better than most that we've seen. Josh, pretty much close to the same question. Did this really kind of wet the whistle for you for AEW? I mean, I don't think it's going to be a slice or salami. There might be stuff in there that's a slice or salami, but would you say that they effectively hit a home run with this pay-per-view?
Yeah, I think they did. Still, the length just kills me, but that's just because it's hard to watch a whole Sunday pay-per-view and not fall asleep when you're old and just finished your strike. And
sorry to cut you off, but I traveled 35 minutes to get home from where I was watching it initially, and when I got home, McPherson's like, it's basically just the start of the pay-per-view. And I was
I'm gonna actually cut you off there too, because it's funny that you used to live in Toronto and you think that 35 minutes is a long drive.
Oh, I could never do that in Toronto. I'd have to take the streetcar. I'd miss the whole pay-per-view. Here, I just drive home. It was great. It was out of camp. He had a projector with a screen going down too. It was great.
Things we all need to do. Josh, continue.
I think, it's great. And that's the thing that I love about AEW is that they really produce high quality matches, especially in their pay-per-views. Whether or not they fit a story it's not always the case, but that's not what this pay-per-view was about. It wasn't necessarily about, keeping storylines going, and it did keep a lot of storylines going. But it's so amazing that you get to see this quality of wrestling consistently, and it's something that I've been wanting to see for quite a long time, and it's a reason why I consistently watch AEW over WWE.
Yeah, it's really unique to kind of watch. And you know what? I'm gonna talk about the WWE a little bit with No Mercy, and I thought that their production value was unbelievable on the weekend. And there was a couple banger matches there. I mean, Trick Williams and Dominic Mysterio was pretty good. Becky Lynch and Stratton had a hell of a match again. Hayes and Dragunov is probably going to end up as a 5-star match. And that was a great card. But this card, when you looked at it, just kind of, for me, blew it out of the water. I think if you took the best match on that WWE card, we're probably talking about 3 matches on this AEW card. And again, trust me, for anybody out there that's listening, I understand that is complete perception for what you say, and we're not trying to antagonize. It's just really showing that in a lot of cases, people are saying AEW is not competition for WWE. And trust me when we say they absolutely are. When you're putting out bangers and you're signing people, this isn't Impact. This isn't even WCW from what we've seen. WCW had a lot of money, but you're seeing something completely different here. And we're not seeing a changing of the guard, but we're seeing the relevance finally, probably in the last 10 years, of a true competitor to the WWE. And that is a great thing for the business of professional wrestling. This card had it all for me. And Josh, I completely agree with you. I mean, when you start a card at 7 o'clock and it ends at 12 or whatever it is, 11:45. That's 5 hours of wrestling. I mean, great bang for your buck for the $39.99 US that you pay to get it. But I think I even had to leave at one point and I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to come back and watch this match later. And that's what I did. Because you need to have a little bit of a break in there. And with a card this stacked, there really wasn't a break match. And that's one of the first times we can say that for an AEW pay-per-view where we're just like, it was just banger after banger. And some of the matches didn't even really look like bangers, but they ended up being really well done. And, kudos to the talent. Like, they should be extremely proud. MJF in the presser last night said everybody had one hell of a match, and I completely agree with him. And he sat there and watched every single match, he said. So he was enthralled by the whole thing. So my initial thoughts, you're looking at this from a pay-per-view level for the value of what you pay for everything. It's an A+ for me. It's never going to be perfect. Like, I don't think you're ever going to have a perfect pay-per-view, but I'd probably even put this card up against some of the WrestleManias, some of the SummerSlams in WWE, and they would hold a candle to some of those massive cards. And to even go out, this might even be a better result than what we've seen at Wembley, right? Chris, go ahead.
Yeah, there's no smoke break matches.
No. You just had a drive home match that you had to rewatch.
Well, no, like McPherson was telling me what was happening during the match, which is great because I'm like, just make sure you tell me what happens. But even like the Statlander match, like that's a great match. Like there's nothing for us to kind of take a break for.
No, and you know what? I think for a lot of people with Julia Hart, they were kind of thinking maybe it's, thinking of 2 years ago, Julia Hart, when she was with, Varsity Blondes, and she was with Griff, and she was with Brian Pillman Jr., and this was a totally different Julia Hart. This is a Julia Hart that's learning her trade. This is a Julia Hart that's learning from some of the best in the business in the House of Black, if that's who she's learning from. But whatever she's doing.
I thought she did great.
She did fantastic. And against a woman who's much bigger than her, and that can be a struggle for a smaller wrestler sometimes, really can. I mean, unless you're Darby and you're flying around like bouncing off of shit and trying to break your neck every 2 seconds, it makes it very difficult to be a smaller wrestler. But we don't want to spoil it too much for you. We're going to start talking about some of the matches of our card. We're going to highlight 5 of the best matches on the card. And we're not going to beat around the bush. Usually if you've listened to our podcast, you've listened on YouTube, or you listen on anything that you listen to, Spotify, whatever it is, you always know that we try to leave the main event to the end. But we can't contain ourselves. We got to talk about basically the main event, which was a little bit of an odd choice, which was Christian Cage and Darby Allin, which is Darby Allin's hometown of Seattle, Washington, in a 2 out of 3 falls match for the TNT title. So a little odd, kind of made people guess when they heard that in the 0 hour. But Chris, I don't really know how to say it. I mean, we're going to start off with, I want to talk about the match with you a little bit, and you can kind of cut in when we get to Josh's question, because I know you're going to have a couple things there too. But this ended up being a much more brutal match than I think we've seen in a long time. The ripping apart of the ring, basically the usage of the stats, just Darby Allin's his basically not caring about anything living or his own life at any which point. I mean, this match had all the storytelling you could possibly think of. What were your thoughts on this match? And, especially with the Nick Wayne turn at the very end, and there's just so many things that happened. What were your overall opinions of watching this match? And were the swerves enough for any wrestling fan to really be turned on to AEW after watching it?
I don't know if any wrestling fan is like a wrestling fan like me. I fucking loved it. Like it was so good. Nick Wayne turning, and then you could see at the end of the match when there was the beatdown, you knew something was coming, and you knew it was Edge, and you knew it was Edge, and I knew it was Edge, and I still got goosebumps. Like as soon as I saw that car drive by the rated R thing, I'm like, oh, you're goddamn right. You're goddamn right. Edge is coming here. Like it was such a good card. Like even just the way he blew kisses at Nick Wayne's mom and stuff. And then Nick Wayne turned and he was all of a sudden with Christian Cage. And then, if you want to talk to me about kind of like the ending of pay-per-views, this is probably one of the best ones I've seen. And I'll give it like a good 5-10 years. Like this was a really good way to end your pay-per-view.
Yeah, and surprisingly, you know what, with Tony, sometimes he's kind of dropped the ball in that area every now and then. And you know what? Like, it was just, for me, it was just the little things. You know, it was the timing of the turn, you know, him coming out at the very end after already wrestling Luchasaurus and having the loss. But I think the key and the glue that tied it all together was Nick Wayne's mother, who sat in the front row for 5 hours just to be part of the payoff of the main event. And really,
we got our payoff. We got our payoff with her, right?
Absolutely. And the screams like, Nick, what are you doing? How could you do this? Yada, yada, yada. And even to the presser with Christian, who never breaks character, basically saying, you know what? Nick's not a great wrestler, but he's a good boy. Like, like just little things like that. And he's going to be good. And, you know, just going on and just watching, like, I mean, Josh, like one of the things I know that grinds your gears was that, like, when they pull out the stretcher, right? But that stretcher ended up, if that doesn't get pulled out, we don't have the frog splash on the stretcher. We don't have half the stuff that kind of happens with that.
It had to happen. It had to happen.
Yeah, but see, that's the thing, is that I don't mind when it happens, when it has an effect like that, right? Like, that's when it's part of the story. It's no longer kayfabe. Like, it's like, I don't like it when they fake the kayfabe piece of it. And, but yeah, it was definitely, it just set up the spot, and it also gave him time to take the fucking ring apart.
Yeah.
And I mean, just the whole thing was nuts. Now, Josh, I have a funny question for you. It's probably not even really a funny question. It's actually a morbid question. And then the second question is probably more of kind of getting into that match. Does Darby Allin live past 37?
I think he does, because he doesn't do hard drugs. Like, I don't think he kills himself. He might break his neck, but I don't think he dies. I think that, you know, if anything, he just gets a really bad injury that he can't recover from at some point.
Yeah, it's so funny because, I mean, you watch Mick Foley now, and watching Darby scares me, and it almost to the point where it's visceral. Like, it seems really weird, but like there were times where I was watching that match and I'm like, I know he protected his neck, I know he protected this, and I'm like, it just looks so visceral. I'm like, I start thinking of what's going to happen to him 10 years from now. Like, that's the craziest part for me. Now, Josh, I don't know
if he that good though.
Who?
Like, is he that good to protect himself where he can kind of have a longer career?
I think in a lot of cases he takes a lot of shots on his arms, and he takes a lot of shots on his shoulders. And really, if those two things can hold up for him, I think he's okay. The problem is he's taking impact that guys that are 200 and some pounds have a tough time taking. And he's at 175 or 185, which I think is even bullshit. I think he's at like 160. And, you know, it takes somebody who's 160 pounds like me to know that. But other than that, when you look at a lot of stuff, yeah, see, good laughs, guys. I knew I'd get a laugh out of it.
Shut up.
It was so casual, beautiful. But I'm a big man. But with that to be said,
aren't we all?
Yes, but with that being said, I think when you're looking at him, like it legitimately scares me when you go through. Now, Josh, there's so many factors and moving parts, and obviously Edge coming in just provides so many different ways for him to go, and especially with Dynamite, he's going to take on Luchasaurus on Wednesday night. We're filming on a Monday. What do you see as Edge projection to the company? Do you foresee him, having that world title run right away, or do you foresee him like really being kind of like this mentor and just looking towards having good matches because he's already done it all? How do you think that Edge fits in AEW? He's mentioned that he's here for probably not a long time, but for a fun time, and just really wanting to get back to having fun. Like, is that enough, or where do you see him fitting in this this masterful puzzle that is AEW at this point?
I just think that he looks at AEW like he is now going to have this artistic freedom that he gets to express himself, and he gets to do things that he'd never be able to do in the WWE again. And then also with Christian being there, you know, like, is this kind of them leading to their retirement together? I'm not sure, but I really see that Edge is kind of like similar to Bryan Danielson coming over, is that like it's not just about the money. The money is super important, but the fact that they get to express themselves the way that they want at the end of their career, not booked by Vince McMahon or Triple H, and also be able to be the stars of a promotion as opposed to, being the guys who are getting pushed out of the promotion and like looked over for things, then, they get to retell their stories. And I'm really looking forward to it because Christian and Adam Copeland haven't been together in a very long time. And I think that story, the fans really deserve to see that story. And they're both in really good shape right now. And it looks great. And that match, just like Christian's psychological, like warfare, like his in-ring ability and his like the psychology that he has in his matches, outstanding. Like just the spot with the turtleneck, like he wears that turtleneck because it's like, I don't know, I mean I don't know why he wears it, but I just love it. But like the way that he had it pulled over for the pin, that was masterful. And then when he did the frog splash onto the stretcher and the spring in it. And even when it looked like they had that miss, like the botch with the stairs the first time, because it looked like they didn't set the stairs up close enough. But what it did was it allowed him to be even more, like that much more like visceral, that demeaning. And, it was, I don't know, Darby Allin, like you could just kind of, I might have heard him say just do it. And like, because he picked him up again and he had to change it. It was going to be a suplex. And then the suplex wasn't working for some reason. Maybe one of them had an abdominal injury. I don't know. But it just was, wow.
Yeah. And you know what? Like, it's funny because Chris, I mean, we look back like when we were growing up and we're looking at like tapes on what you would watch to like really understand the wrestling business and to see somebody's progression and how good they can get. I think nowadays, if we were ever to teach, I think we'd probably look at Christian's progression from his WWE days when he was in his 20s to now as one of the best wrestling progressions. He gets better with every year he gets older. It's the fucking weirdest thing. It's like Benjamin Button of all things. And he just gets better. He's like a fine wine. He just gets better with age, right? Like it's the stupidest thing I've ever seen. And when you go back to
I agree with you in everything you just said right there. Yeah. Like Christian just gets better. The more you let him run, with like his own idea. Like the tweets he sends out, happy, like I hope all your fathers are okay. Like it's like when
it's even the little things when he was like even in the presser, Chris, like even before that, it's like Luchasaurus wins the title. This is my title. It's like just the things, like anything to make somebody hate him, and then they call him out and they go, all the people that you like talk about, their mothers, fathers, grandfathers, they're all dead. He goes, and he just goes, duh. Like he just knows exactly what to do.
He like tells a story about Darby Allin's uncle driving drunk and dying. Like it's crazy. He's the heel. He's the prototype now.
It's almost for me. He's almost on world title pace, and it's so odd to say that. And he doesn't even need it. Like he just insane. He can bring the best out of any face to the point where it's ridiculous. But that match rating, I don't know, guys. I gave that match for storytelling and everything. I don't know, Chris. What'd you rate the match? I rated it an A+.
Yeah, I agree. A+ for me too.
Just because Matt was a dick last time and went off board and said S, I'm going to say S.
I actually just changed it and actually said it's probably an S, but I'll stick with my A+. You can have the S, Josh. Okay, we start at the back of the card. Or sorry, the main event of the card. And we're going to rewind back to the very, very front of the card. So we have that psychological match, and now we're moving back to the front with MJF against who the hell are they again? Oh man,
the Righteous.
Oh man, the Righteous. Why'd I forget? I feel so bad that I can never remember their name, but I never forget Vincent out of all people because Vincent was in the original, the second version of the Kingdom, right? And did a great job in that. And he's phenomenal as a psychopath. But anyways, MJF versus the Righteous for the ROH tag team titles. Adam Cole not around. Why? Because he basically broke his ankle in three pieces. And Josh, what do you always say?
It's a work.
Yeah, probably could be at work. So we actually have some interesting things that we'll talk about this because we've been off air for about a week and a half. So we talk about that psychological match that basically Christian and Darby Allin had, that violent match, and we go into this, which was a lot more comedic. It was a comedic opener, and like this had basically everything. You look at MJF, I'd probably say like this is probably one of the perfect examples of sports entertainment. I wouldn't say wrestling ability, but I would say for this was sports entertainment at its finest, and MJF did a fantastic job. Now, Chris, it's kind of weird. We're going to talk about just Adam Cole for a second. Obviously, Cole's not there. We've been hearing rumblings on the internet right now where, especially after what happened, I believe was it on Dynamite or Collision? I think it was Dynamite last Wednesday, where basically MJF and Jay White have a promo. He basically calls Jay White Tofu, which is a great nickname. I think it's fantastic. And basically Jay White then as a heel gets beaten up in the back by 4 guys and basically somebody wearing a devil mask. So a lot of people are trying to find Easter eggs, and they've found a lot. Now, do you think Adam Cole is the person that's behind the devil mask in this situation? And that this whole thing is a complete work with his broken ankle? Because let's even face it, Britt Baker posted a picture of it too, of the x-ray.
How good is this shit? Like, how good is this? Like, this is so good. We all thought, so we talked to each other like in our own like text messages. We all thought Edge was showing up as the masked man, right?
Yeah.
So like, look at how this is what AEW does. It's why it's such a better company than WWE. Like, I know even though I know what's coming from AEW, I get goosebumps after like when it comes. But yeah, so I think it's a legit injury. I think I told you guys. I said that cast looks pretty sus. Like just a bunch of like scotch tape over like a bunch of like compression stuff. But yeah, Britt Baker showed his injury. I think he's pretty injured. There's no, I've broken my ankle a couple times. You can't go do shit. But
oh man, I'm steering away from questions at this point. Josh, you think that it's a work? Argue this point. You think that it's a work? I know you think it's Cole. Don't you lie to me either.
I mean,
can't be.
I could argue why it could be Cole. I did watch him get injured, and I think that it is a legit injury. But I hope it's a work. I like it when it's a work. So I would say that you have to look at why was it Jay White, and Jay White doesn't make sense for very many people to attack. He's a heel. He should be the one who's getting attacked. So unless he's having a face push. So what I speculate is Kyle O'Reilly returns and Adam Cole attacks with Roddy Strong and those other 2 Mamalukes. I don't know what they're called, but those are the. But it didn't look like it. The guys who attacked didn't look like that group. One of the guys looked like Daniel Garcia, like their body type. But I mean, it doesn't really matter who's masked because they can make it whoever they want.
And somebody's left-handed too.
I knew it wasn't Edge because Edge couldn't have been in the mask because he was still under contract. It didn't mean that he couldn't have been the masked man, but I don't know. I don't think the masked person is Adam Cole.
Isn't this crazy though? Like, we don't know who it is. We thought it was going to be Edge for a bit.
I think for a lot of the time when we're looking at it too, I think one of the things to really say is that basically Kyle O'Reilly's been off the shelf for a year and he's pretty well hidden, right? So when you look at 4 guys and you add in Strong, Taven, and Bennett, Bennett likes to punch people in the wiener for neck awareness, just letting everybody know that as a reminder. You pretty much have something new, and I think what ends up potentially happening here is that Kyle O'Reilly is a really good fit, and I think he's a name that really hasn't been thrown around a lot on the internet. It makes more sense for it to be Cole, but at the end, Kyle O'Reilly was doing some really good work with AEW, and he's probably in the upper mid card, and he was in a lot of main events for them before he went down with injuries and just wear and tear, right?
We talked about him showing up at Wembley. In the pod, we've talked about it.
Oh, for sure. And I think we can't. I don't think he's somebody that you forget about. So it's going to be really interesting to see what happens with Cole. And the storyline is not done. With the match itself, basically MJF did a comedic job. Basically ran over the Righteous to the point where I actually felt bad for them because they picked up 2 really big wins on Dynamite and Collision before going out there. And I don't think you're going to have a better chance of winning the ROH tag titles. But I really hope Tony kind of gives them I think the word is like kind of gives them a receipt or a check that they can cash in later to get the titles back. Because I honestly believe that the body of work, like we often forget about the crazy psychopaths. And I think like a lot of them, like back in 90s wrestling and 2000s, a lot of them were there. You had like the really kind of the psychological guys like Raven and the Flock. And, you know, you had, you know, different groups that really kind of like, sounds really stupid, Chris. I'm going to bring up like somebody like Midian. I never thought I'd say Midian on a wrestling cast, but kind of the guys that just kind of went loopy. And Vincent and Dutch do such an amazing job with it. And also don't forget Stu Grayson's with them too. You know, they have the ability
I looked them up. I looked them up recently and I saw like their promos are good and what's his name? The bigger guy with the sunglasses, he's like huge.
Yeah, he's a big boy and you know what? Like they're actually good wrestlers. Like I said, Vincent, if you watched ROH before, was in the second version of the Kingdom with Taven and Bennett, and then he went fucking crazy, and then that was the storyline that broke them up, right? So and then he ended up being the Righteous, but kind of a little bit of a shame for that when you go through. But Chris, how'd you rate the match overall when you looked at it? Like if you were to give a grading and a little bit of a description, how'd you feel about watching it as the opener?
I think I called it. I called it with McPherson. I said this will probably be the opener. Like I assumed this would be the opener to bring them 2 out. But I thought like as a whole, like the match went over pretty well. Like even MJF kind of didn't give him the rub, but he sold for them. Like they look good. Like he didn't make them look like jerks, I guess, like in there, because he knows he's gonna win. Everybody knows he's gonna win, right? Mm-hmm. So I don't know. I thought the match as a whole wasn't too bad of a match, and I thought it could have gone a lot worse, like to open a pay-per-view.
Yeah, Josh, what was how would you rate the match? What would you give it as a grading if you were to look at it like your own grading? You know, just whatever your main thought was watching it.
I mean, I think the match was exactly what it was supposed to be. It, you know, gets the crowd warmed up. It's entertaining. So, like for me, that's not the type of match I'm looking for, but it was entertaining. So, you know, like it was probably a solid B for me. But if you're bringing a casual fan, this match would probably be more entertaining for you than the Bryan Danielson Zack Sabre Jr. match, but like, which is a much better match in my opinion. But I think that this match did exactly what it was. And Matt, I agree with you. I mean, I don't have a problem with MJF going over the way that he did, but it kind of does feel like it buries them a little bit. It devalues who they are as a tag team, especially getting those 2 big wins, like you were saying. I know everybody knew that MJF was going to win. And I love when MJF calls his shots when he's like, I'm going to take his dreadlocks. And he's like, white guy with dreadlocks. That's kind of weird, you know? And he's like, I'm going to take his dreadlocks and shove it up his ass. And then he's like, and then I'm going to body slam him. And then he proceeds to do it, which is, you know, great because he's done that, you know, with Darby Allin. He's done that. He proceeds
to do it.
Yeah, like he does it. He does it every time, right? So like whenever he does it, and it's good. And that stupid kangaroo, you know, kick, like MJF is doing exactly what he needs to do to become, I mean, he already is the face of this company, but if he wants to move to WWE, he's showing them he can do it because, you know, like The Rock, you know, he had a funny spot, but he was a megastar, right? Like, you know, the kangaroo kick is MJF's funny spot and it's so over.
Yeah, you know, I think at the end of the day, I think you hit it right on the head. I think the credibility there is a little bit lost, right, with that loss. But I think at the end of the day, like, I mean, you kind of look at what MJF can bring to the table, and he can bring everything. And one of the things that I think the storyline is going to bring is I think the minute that the person, whoever it is, calls, whether it be Cole on the swerve or whether it be somebody else, the minute that they call MJF a joke is the minute that he turns back in and reverts into something way worse. He has the ability to be the number one face, the number one heel. He can go whatever way he wants and wherever the storyline dictates. And what that gives Tony is versatility. And not many world champions can do that. Right? Like, honestly, like, Seth Rollins is going to do his thing where he kind of goes, oh, and like, he's great on the mic and he can change it up, but you can't change your persona when you're that persona to something else in a matter of a week. MJF can do it in a matter of a week. And that
we haven't seen
versatility.
it. We haven't
Yeah,
seen
go
a
ahead.
champ like MJF for a while. Like he can, he's making his bones right now in a league that's considered second tier, and he's in movies now. He's in that Von Erich movie.
Yep. Which will be
Yeah,
which is going to
so-
be. I was showing Itzy that my partner the other day about that Zac Efron as Kerry Von Erich, just kind of
Yeah.
fucking nuts. So yeah, it'll be interesting, and I think time will tell where it goes from here. And I don't think we're done talking about this topic on the podcast. But with that being said, we're gonna move into a couple of 1 6-man tag. We're gonna talk about a tag team championship match. And then we're gonna go into our what I think majority of us might have thought to be the match of the evening. So the third match is we're gonna talk about the 6-man between Chris Jericho, Kenny Omega, and Kota Ibushi, or Chris Jericho and the Golden Lovers, versus Takeshita Guevara and Will Ospreay, with head of the family Don Callis on the side. So, guys, I don't know. This was another banger. This was a match where, kind of had a lot of stuff going for it. Like, basically, Don and Takeshita went to Japan, beat the ever-loving shit out of Kota Ibushi in his dojo. They basically got Kota to come out for this match. Josh, you're looking at this as a 6-man tag. A lot of big names in this match. Who did you think was the all-star that basically brought it to the table for this match all the way through? Do you have an all-star for this?
You know what? I don't. I think that there was most of the time the wrestlers did great. I think that the match worked really well together as a trios match, and Kota Ibushi, had a few spots that were a little tough for me, but I didn't realize he was agile as he was. He is as agile as he was. So I thought it was a fantastic match. Will Ospreay, huge. I mean, I could just watch him wrestle all day. Even Sammy Guevara, he had that huge shooting star press, which was pretty fucking crazy. It looked a little late. And then was it the Atomico Swanton was pretty impressive. I don't know. I was impressed with everybody. Even Jericho did the spots that he needed to do. And Takeshita's a great athlete. I think it's interesting that I was reading that Kenny Omega has lost like in the last 3 pay-per-views, or he's consistent. He's lost, he didn't take the pinfall in this one, right? It was Jericho that took the pinfall.
Guevara, Guevara pinned Jericho for the win.
But it was just, I don't know. It was a very entertaining match. I think that trios is pretty much the most wrestlers I want to see in a match to get a good rating. It's hard to get an A rating with any more than 3 on each team. So I thought it was fantastic. The just a couple of stumbles by Ibushi, but other than that, this match was the tops. But I'd say that like probably Omega and Ospreay were probably my favorites. But Sammy Guevara had 2 of the bigger spots as well. So.
Yeah, you know what? It's really funny when you kind of go through it and you kind of see Kota Ibushi after, wrestling only 3 matches in the last 3 years. He doesn't have his, you kind of look at his physique, and not that I'm body shaming by any means, but you look at his physique when he was the NJPW champion compared to now, he just doesn't have it anymore. I find that he's more in a training aspect. He's getting older. He's had some injuries, and I think he's kind of starting to slow down, and his career's winding down a little bit. But with that being said, looking at the 2 young guns in that match being, Guevara and, Takeshita, I think they really held their own. And I think they solidified themselves as, big players, upper card players by watching this match. Takeshita is a goddamn monster. He doesn't have to speak great English. He could just be this Japanese assassin that everybody wants him. And Guevara is going to be a big mouth. I was talking to a couple of people last night, and like I said, we've all know that I hate Sammy Guevara, but I hate him for other reasons. But I said he's much better. He's more relatable as a heel, because I find that because everybody just wants to hate him. They don't really want to like him for anything. They want a reason to hate that guy. Like, he's a pretty boy. He just high flies, and that's pretty much it. But him getting the win over Jericho is massive. For me, it was great to see Jericho pull out the lion salt, and there was a couple of mistakes in that match when we went through, but I think overall, like it was really well done. Now, Chris, how did you feel about Don Callis really getting himself involved? Like, is Don Callis the number one heel in the company?
Yeah, he's close. You gotta put him up there, right? Like the whole chant before the match is "fuck you, Callis" the whole time. And I mean, it was a great match. I like the match, but yeah, like Callis, it's crazy how much he can do as a manager. Like how much he can bring into the storyline. The brown noise for the entrance once again, and then the whole picture is just like the godly family with Don Callis as God himself.
It's the Last Supper.
Yeah, like it's great. It's great. This is what I watch it for. Like I want to see stuff like that. I don't want to see. Yeah, I guess this is why we turn into a pro AEW, right? AEW podcast, because like none of this fun stuff is in the WWE. Like we don't get a chance to see this. Like they put a picture of the Last Supper up there with Don Callis as God. Like come on,
I think you got two different sets of fans, and one thing I really want this podcast and to be is not like what we see on the internet, where it's like we're anti WWE. I mean, we'll definitely give WWE its due where it comes through, but right now we're really enjoying the AEW product, and I think that that's really important too, is that when, you know, I mean, we've had basically 3 months of a lot of pay-per-views that have come out and PLEs, but I mean, are we going to find
there's an obvious one who's ahead of the game though right now? AEW is starting to be ahead of the game again.
Yeah, for sure. And it means that it doesn't mean that for anybody that listens for WWE, we're not going to cut that stuff. It's just, at the end of the day, like, you're not going to see the caliber of what we saw last night. So anybody that's going to send us messages about hating one company or the other, we're not going to read them. Just to let you guys know. So don't fucking do it. But
hey,
Josh,
Matt, I have a question for you.
Yeah, go for it.
I noticed with Sammy Guevara and his heat, it's kind of like Dominic Mysterio-esque. Like, do you think that he's trying to push his heat so hard that he can get booed even harder than Dominic Mysterio?
Yeah, I think so. I think that would be the goal right now. I think if you look at Dominic Mysterio's heel heat, I think any heel in the business would want it. Why wouldn't you want the heat that he gets, to not be able to speak, to have like, to be like whatever he has with Rhea Ripley? I mean, it was unfortunate that Dominic lost the title at No Mercy, but it's just one of those things where it kind of gives the opportunity for Dom to go back on the main roster and lets Trick Williams have a little bit of the spotlight, right? But I think anybody would kill to have that heat, or Christian heat, or anything like that. So, is he trying to compete? Is he trying to compete? Sorry, Chris. Is he trying to compete with Dominic Mysterio? I don't know. He might be, but I don't think so. I think Sammy Guevara is trying to get as much Sammy Guevara heat that he can with an AEW crowd. Chris, go for it.
Well, I just it's hard to get that heat that Dom gets. Like, it's like, unless you're going out of your way to do it, like, it's hard to get that heat. Like, he's got heat that we haven't seen heat like this in years. Like, it's been a while. So yeah, I think he'd be better off not trying to follow that path, if you ask me. I think Sammy Guevara does get his own heat. Like, a lot of people hate Sammy Guevara just because he's Sammy Guevara. So,
and I think, like, with all the stuff that happened and him kind of going in and out, and then, you know what, I think one of the worst mistakes that he made was when they were doing the Four Pillars match, that he kind of switched to trying to be a face. And now I feel that now he's solidified himself as a heel. We might actually see the best work from Sammy Guevara moving forward. He's a dickhead through and through. He's an arrogant little fucking prick that you want to see his face get bashed in every 2 seconds. That's what we want from a heel, right? At the end of the day. And
I really felt you there, Matt. I really felt that. You really said he was a prick like you knew him.
Yeah, well, I mean, but I'm talking about the character he portrays, but at the end of the day, it's not like my episode 2 or whatever where I said I fucking hate the guy. He's not my favorite. He's not my favorite worker at the end of the day, but I give him credit where credit is due. He's extremely talented, but I don't believe him as a world champion, and I think he believes himself as being a world champion in every promotion, and I just don't agree with it. So that's my final say on that. But with the 6-man, unbelievable match. If you get a chance to watch it and you haven't, watch it. But with the 6-man, it kind of led into a couple other matches. We actually had an 8-man tag. We're not going to talk about that, but we know that the Young Bucks did win basically the 4-way tag match, basically to select number 1 contenders, and basically they were going to face the winners at a later date of FTR and Aussie Open. Chris, we know that you're a massive fan of Aussie Open. We've talked about them on the pod before. Come from NJPW. Basically, they were in the United Empire. 2 Aussie guys, Davis and Fletcher. Did they really have to perform here? Did it feel like this was a make or break night for them against FTR for the tag team championships? I'm not saying win or lose. We know that FTR did get the win in this match, but did they do enough to solidify themselves as one of the stronger upper echelon tag teams in AEW?
Yeah, I'd say 100%. I thought they did great. They have the perfect blend of the smaller guy who can do the bigger stuff, but then he's what? He's like 6'7". Even the smaller guy. So then they have
these big boys.
What was the name? Mark Adams or the bigger guy?
Davis is the big guy. Kyle Fletcher's the skinnier guy.
Yeah. So I mean, these guys have it. Like they have that perfect like little guy who's not too little. And then the big guy who's the bruiser who comes in and bruises stuff. I thought they wrestled a fantastic match. I thought they made a statement for their future that night. Like it was a really good match, and I really didn't have too high hopes for it. I thought it was going to be a squash match, but even like they did not the big rig. It's
Shatter Machine.
Yeah. So they even did the Shatter Machine. Like usually if you're going to book somebody, you don't book a tag team to do the other tag team's like finishing move unless the other tag team has a say in it. So I think FTR was in for it as well. I think they just signed. I think they could make a major impact moving forward, if you ask me.
Josh, what were your thoughts on Aussie Open in this match in general? I mean, Aussie Open isn't somebody, somebody if you haven't watched a lot of NJPW that we've seen a lot of. We've seen them out with Will Ospreay. They've signed a deal with AEW. They're all elite. Moving forward, where do you think they stand? Moving kind of the same question to Chris. Like, are they an upper echelon tag team after this performance, and was this make or break for them?
I don't think it was make or break for them. I think that they definitely did exactly what they needed to do to advance through this company. I mean, no one expects them to beat FTR. They just lost the ROH titles to Adam Cole and MJF. I think they're a fantastic tag team, and I love the addition to the tag roster because, a good tag roster gets you good storylines. Matt and we were talking about the 4-way tag match. And I said, I thought that the Guns could win because I didn't think that they would book Young Bucks FTR again so quickly. And so I was a little bit disappointed with that result, but I knew that FTR was going to win this match because it didn't make sense for Aussie Open to win. I thought they did a great job against FTR. It was exactly what it needed to be. My favorite spot in the match was when they set up with Cash flying off the top ropes after Dax did the superplex, and then I forget the guy's Fletcher, is it? When Fletcher jumped off the top rope and cross-bodied Dax into it. That was a really high spot for me, and it was a really well done match, and it had a lot of like very good, close finishes and all those things. So I was really impressed, and I think that Aussie Open's just solidifying their spot on the roster. It would be too soon for them to get a title. It didn't make sense the way to be booked that way. It was a perfect match to get them into the story again later.
Yeah, I personally feel that this was make or break for them in a lot of cases. And I don't mean make or break like the sense that they can never come back from it, because Kyle Fletcher's really young. Mark Davis, I don't even know how old he is if somebody wants to look it up, but he looks like he's like 45 with that beard and that mullet, whatever he has. But Kyle Fletcher's, kind of, fun fact about Kyle Fletcher, he's also dating Sky Blue, just to let everybody know. If you didn't know that. If you don't know, now you know. But
he's 33, Matt.
Davis is 33. Holy jeez, he looks like he's 40-something. But that's probably just because he's a bigger guy and crazy. Anywho, I like the work that they did with United Empire, and I felt that they were really strong in a stable. I felt that when they signed with the AEW that they were going to be, what's the word? Kind of floundering without that stable, if that's what it is. They don't talk as much. I personally, like, when you talk about Aussie Open, I think of tennis, so I think it's just, for me, it's not a tag team name that really sticks. The other Aussies that are in NJPW, when you think of the Mighty Don't Kneel, or what is it, TMDK, right? There's a lot of culture that comes from the Aussies, and I feel like when you're kind of going through, I think a lot of them has to kind of get away from the Aussie, oi, oi, oi stuff. Just, for me,
it was hot, though. It was hot in the crowd.
It's hot for them. It's just overdone, in my opinion. It doesn't mean that I'm right or wrong. I'm just giving you my opinion. At the end of the day, though, FTR and them did the smartest thing that they possibly could, which was something that we alluded to 2 weeks ago. There is not enough good tag teams in AEW, and you've solidified them now as a team that can step in and fight. Josh, I'm with you 100%. I wanted the Guns to win that match more than anything because I kind of wanted the Bucks to go in a little bit later towards the end of the year. Maybe at Full Gear, maybe past Full Gear. But Josh, what were your thoughts?
On like the rating?
No, I thought you had your hand up in the thing.
No, sorry. I like I said, we spoke about it. I just think that like they just had the Bucks and FTR, and I'm just not ready for it again. That's all it was. I think that the Guns made perfect sense because the other two teams didn't make sense to me, like Hook and Orange Cassidy. That's not a team that challenges for the title. That's just a fun team. I mean, you might have them challenge for the title, but I didn't think they were going to win.
Oh, they were fillers for sure. And then you had Phoenix with the international title too, right? Like I totally agree with that statement. Totally.
Yeah, I was also a little bit like, do I want to see the Bucks again against FTR? Like they just did a program. And so I don't know. I thought it was going to be down to the Guns, or I actually thought the Guns are going to win.
I was telling Josh really wanted the Guns to win, and when we were talking last night, I said if you look at the money line, basically Bucks were minus 100 to win it, or minus 115, right? So, and the thing about wrestling, when you're looking at betting lines, is usually they happen like 85% of the time they happen. But that's the reality of what it was. Now, a good match overall. Chris, what would you rate it if you had to give it a letter rating?
Which match are we talking about? The 4-way?
No, the tag match with FTR and Aussie Open.
Yo, I'm gonna give it a B+.
Josh, what'd you rate it?
Yeah, same.
Yeah, I had it at a B. So yeah, we're pretty much there. Actually, I'd probably give it a B+. I think it was better than that. My favorite move was when they did the Doomsday Device with the kick. That was my favorite one. Now, we're going to talk to what most people will think is the match of the night, and probably a match that hopefully we see again in the near future at some point. But a match that I don't think we've ever really seen in our day and age, which was between Bryan Danielson and Zack Sabre Jr. Now, no titles on the line for this one. Zack Sabre Jr. is the NJPW, the first ever NJPW World Television Champion. Hasn't lost the title yet, so he's still the only guy that's ever held that belt. But this was just labeled as a dream match. And basically, this was a battle between the two best technical wrestlers on planet Earth. And oh my God, it did not disappoint. The build-up was slow and methodical. There was finger manipulation, joint manipulation. There was at one point, there was a hip toss turned into an abdominal stretch. There was a dragon screw leg whip, which looked like somebody like basically Zack Sabre Jr. blew out his foot. But the crazy part about the match was when you're thinking about storytelling, stories in books kind of always follow, in many cases, the same strategy. It's a slow rising action into the climax, and then we have the descending action. The climax was just violence. And that was the greatest part about this. This was a match that was supposed to be a masterclass about mat technicians, and it was. And the violence was all done on the mat, which was fantastic. Chris, was this your match of the night, yes or no? And was this probably the best technical wrestling match that you've ever seen in your life?
It would have been if it wasn't on Highway 17 when when it went down. Yeah, I was driving home from McPherson's house in Lively, so I actually didn't see this match. I can only imagine. So McPherson kind of kept me abreast to it, and yeah, it seemed good. Sorry, don't mean to burst your bubble, but I didn't see it.
Oh fuck. I'll fill it in after. Josh, what were you? So, anyways, Josh, I got a funny one for you. If we take episode 8, okay, good. If you if you take episode 18 as a podcast and we were to turn it into a drinking game with how many times Chris has said the word McPherson today, do you think you'd be drunk?
Yeah, I haven't drank in 2 years, so quite possibly.
Awesome. Josh, what were your thoughts on this match? Do you agree with what I said, or do you think something different? Was this an instant classic or what?
Oh yeah, I mean, so this is the match that a pure wrestling fan would enjoy. A casual fan might struggle with, but it was masterclass. I agree with you. It had everything I wanted in it. It's almost hard to describe because when you watch it, it's kind of like it was like a dance, and it was but a brutal dance, like a war with dance moves. How about that? I don't know, but just the way that the transitions are really what does it for me in these matches, because like the holds, they're great, and seeing them move in between different holds and seeing moves that you don't typically see. I don't know how the announcers keep up with all of the different types of moves that are happening. And I'm just like, okay, I've heard omoplata like 6 times and I know what that is. And then I was like, I don't know what the octopus. Oh my goodness. It was something that you don't get to see in wrestling very often. And for the fact that they both can do it that well makes it even better because they got to play off of each other. And they still had that brutality and, some, traditional wrestling moves. So I just thought, A+, S minus, S plus, I don't know what's good, but, if we're using an A+ scale, A+ for me.
I think we know what I'm going to be watching later.
Yeah, and you know what? Like, I have another question for you, Chris, that'll come up in a second. But when you're looking at this, I think like what really summed up this whole match for me was Daniel Bryan's like post-match speech that he gave, where he was actually very emotional about it. He was actually crying and saying like that's the match that he's always wanted to have in his career, And I think like you really felt for it when you really see it, because like Danielson is probably one of the most genuine people on planet Earth. I mean, I don't know, but when you're looking at somebody from a celebrity perspective where you're watching somebody on TV and you're just looking at somebody who's genuine, that's who you really think of, right? And I love the fact at the end of the match that he went to offer the handshake. Zack Sabre Jr. refuses the handshake. He says, even though he was submitted, says, I never tapped. We're going to have to do this again in Japan or England. You pick where you want to go, but those are the 2 places we're going to fight and do this again. I can't wait to see it. I don't
love it.
I don't care if it's at Wembley. Like if that ends up being Brian Danielson's last match. I'm turning into JR here, guys.
JR. You did it twice.
Yeah, it's just force of habit. But Brian Danielson's last match, if it ends up being Wembley and it's against Zack Sabre Jr. and that's the match we get to see, oh my God, what an end to a career that would be. That's just something unbelievable that I think if we were to see that again.
Would any of us be upset over that? I don't think so.
No.
I say
you tell me what you think once you've watched the match, right?
Well, once I actually watch a match, but if you think about what they can do, and then if they play that back and that's his last match of his career, like that's not bad at all.
That's big for both of them. I think it's big for Zack Sabre Jr. too. I don't think because he's been in NJPW so long, I don't think he gets a lot of credit for North Americans for what happens. And that's a guy there that deserves his flowers. He's been around a long time to do the stuff that he's been doing. Now, my last question to basically end this is that we talked about best technical wrestler on the planet. Now, Chris, if you had to go to the WWE or anywhere else, but I'd prefer if you picked the WWE. I think if you were to think WWE, and you were to think, who could put on one person on any of the show that could actually, kind of match these two, who do you think it would be if you had to pick one? I'm really, this is more of my interest than anything, not for our fans listening. I'm really interested to hear on what you have to say.
Is this current?
Current. It has to be somebody on the roster right now, or somebody that just got released because there was like 100 people that just got released, right?
It can't be Bret Hart, Chris.
No, I know, I got it. It would be Owen Hart, by the way, if it was my
Close enough.
I'd say Gable. Gable could probably pull something like this off, or Ziggler.
Josh, what would you say?
Okay, only because I really like his finger manipulation. Butch.
Actually, he wouldn't be too bad either. I think I don't think he's on the level technically, but I think submission-wise he is. You'd be surprised who I would say. Actually, Chris, when I was thinking about this 10 minutes ago, when I was thinking of this question, Gable was the first person that came to my mind. But now, the more that I start thinking of it, minute past minute, second by second goes on, it's Gunther for me.
That's a good, I think
if you were to put those in, and I don't think Gunther has been able to show his technical ability for what he's doing. He's playing more of a roughneck style, but he's unbelievable on the mat. And I think like when you saw with what we saw, the technical ability when him and Gable fought, I think it'd be really interesting to see him and Danielson go at it, or like even Gunther and Sabre Jr. would be crazy. I just wish everybody would be able to fight each other. It'd be great.
I just wish people because we both said Gable, right? Like I wish people could see how good Gable is.
Yeah, and you know what? And he's more than, and that's the problem with, one of the things that I hate about WWE is that you end up being your catchphrase. And like shoosh, it's great for the fans because you're dealing with a younger audience and you're dealing with different people and they think it's funny. But at the end of the day, his technical ability far surpasses any of that, right? Like it'd be interesting to see what they can do when they have creative freedom. And I think that's the challenge that we see between both places. One place is a production company. The other one is, more about the product and more about, creative control at that point. So that's basically our, kickoff for WrestleDream and what we've done for WrestleDream. Just banger after banger after banger. I mean, we kind of missed Swerve and Hangman. That was another one that we could talk about. That was another pretty much a B+ and A match. That's one that we might, we'll be hearing more from Swerve and Hangman in the future. That was a pretty solid match. But, Josh, what slices your salami?
Okay, before I do my slice of my salami, I want to walk back some comments I made on Swerve Strickland because I am impressed with what he's doing now, and I think that he will be AEW's first black champion, and I think he deserves that. So,
that's not bad. I think you might be onto something there.
Okay. So tonight in what slices my salami, what really slices my salami? The fact that the championship belt is a formidable weapon. And I mean, I can understand, but it's not like, I guess is it made out of metal? I'm not sure, but the way that they hit them, it doesn't look very formidable. And it's fine. I'd rather them whip them with it. That looks a lot better. But to like come up with like, here's my, I don't know. Anyways, the fact that a championship belt is a formidable weapon.
It's made of gold, Josh. It's made of gold.
It's soft. I've held one. Remember Kareem?
Oh, don't talk about us about Kareem.
Kareem.
We're going to get kicked off the airways if we talk about Kareem.
That's fine. He can say what he said, but we can't. So
yeah, that's true.
Remember when he held his belt? Like how much?
That's what I'm saying.
How much did this cost? He's like, you don't want to know.
It was like $600. So things are like $600 to $800.
Kenny King, you broke ass.
Remember we were talking shit to Prince Nana, just smashing on the boards and shit.
Do you ever see those, like the guy's got like a TikTok and he's got like 1,000 belts in his room?
Yeah, I've seen it.
And it's just like, look at all these belts. And I'm just like, that's like $40,000 right there. Ridiculous.
Yeah. Okay. Chris, anything else to add before we close out?
What do we got? What do we got coming up? Nothing. I got a little autism baseball tournament coming up next weekend. That's about it. That's it. What do you guys got going on moving forward?
Josh, what do you got going on?
My strike is over, and I am glad to be back at work, back to some normalcy, and ordered a couple pairs of shoes, waiting for those to come in, and getting the deck done soon. So I am hoping that I have my deck done by next summer and can actually enjoy my yard.
Oh, that's good. Are you still coming down on the weekend?
Yeah, you know what? I think I would like to go play some cards at Woodbine.
I should be able to join
if
you
I
now.
might.
Do you know why?
Okay.
Do you know why?
Because you're not a broke ass.
Because Bill Kazmaier won the world's strongest man.
Not until last night, but Chris, I'm not going to promote any casinos to be an 18 plus podcast, but
not unless they sponsor us.
I had the second biggest slot win in my career yesterday at 12:35 p.m. or a.m.
Well, that's a big one.
$1,300.
How big was it? $1,300?
Yeah.
Holy shit. Buy me a bus ticket, like when we went to Fallsview together.
Oh my
for the degree poker tournament.
Me and Chris go to the degree. So this is a funny story for the pod. Me and Chris go to the degree poker championships. It's basically a free roll. You have to sign on TSN to go. And then we basically go. And then Chris is like, yeah, he's coming from Ottawa. I'm coming from Sudbury. He's like, we'll meet up at the bus station in Toronto. So we get ready and like, you can just buy your tickets from Toronto, Niagara Falls, nothing. Chris goes, hey man, can you buy my bus ticket? I go, yeah, I can, because we got the hotel coming up anyways. He goes, yeah. He's like, it's all good. We got the money from the hotel. So me and Chris go. We sit in like day 1A. And then Chris gets knocked out. Chris gets knocked out. And then 2 hands later, I get knocked out. And then we're just like, yeah, let's just go back to the room and order pizza. And that's what we did.
And then we went home the next day.
Yeah, pretty much.
I haven't played cards in a long time, so I don't think I'm going to do very well. Probably sit 1-2. That's it.
You know what? You should take a tour of the casino before you go. It's nice. Like I said, we're not promoting, but it's nice. But yeah, if you do make it down for the long weekend, yeah, you got a place to stay. So
yeah, I'd probably just come up Saturday, come home Sunday. So I'll let you know.
Yeah, that's fine. More than welcome to do that. So anyways, with that being said, I think we're all said and done here. I think that's pretty much it. So no matter what happens, wherever you are in the world, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night. We all bid you adieu here from the Rub Wrestling Pod. Bang!